A few years ago, a TV show did a review of whether or not an individual living in Virginia said that they were the related to the royal family in the Soviet Union when they had the famous assassination when the Bolsheviks took over, whether or not she stated she was Anastasia. There was a lot of discrepancy about that, but anyhow, here's a kind of a quick review of it, and let me get this on the screen here real quick.
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
In 1917, Tsar Nicholas and his royal family were on the brink of catastrophe. The sudden violence of the Russian Revolution stripped the Tsar of his power. The entire royal family was brutally murdered. A legend endures, however, that the Tsar's youngest daughter, Anastasia, escaped the massacre and is still alive today. In 1913, Russia proudly celebrated 300 years under Romanov rule. Tsar Nicholas was probably the richest man in the world. The Tsarina, Alexandra, was a German princess whom Nicholas married against his parents' wishes. They have an ailing son, Alexei, and 4 daughters, Olga, Titania, Maria, and Anastasia. Born in 1901, Anastasia is the youngest and most exuberant of the girls. Life for the royal family was happy and carefree. Roller skating on the royal yacht was a favorite pastime for the Tsar's daughters. A continual flurry of extravagant social events kept the Tsarina happily occupied. A reluctant ruler, Tsar Nicholas found contentment in the frivolous world of family and court. He stayed completely isolated from the poverty and ferment of his land. In much of Russia, food was in short supply. Hunger, a daily reality. 85% of Russia's people were peasants. Tsar Nicholas' father, Alexander II, had freed them from serfdom, and now they wanted to own the land they farmed. Workers were demanding higher wages and to be treated as other than slaves. Yet Tsar Nicholas remained aloof in a royal world of privilege and established order. By 1917, the disastrous war with Germany had cost Russia uncounted millions of lives. Soldiers deserted by the thousands. There were threats of revolution. In the streets of St. Petersburg, angry demonstrators demanded immediate change. Workers went on strike. Soldiers joined the people. In a desperate attempt to restore order, the Tsar's generals asked Nicholas to renounce his throne. On March 15, 1917, Tsar Nicholas abdicated. To ensure their safety, Nicholas and his family were held as prisoners. Their fate remained uncertain. Everywhere, the once sacred symbols of Tsardom were torn away. St. Petersburg became a hotbed of political struggle among several revolutionary factions. All were determined to wrest control of Russia.
It's hard to get everything in here for a review, but I'll try to get the significant points. And let's see if I can advance this a bit.
Two escape attempts.
In February 1920, a half-dead person was dragged from a Berlin canal. It was a young, unidentified woman who appeared about 20 years old. She was admitted to the Elizabeth Hospital for observation. She seemed frightened and bewildered and refused to reveal her identity to the doctors. After 2 years of silence, she claimed she was the Grand Duchess Anastasia. Dowager Empress Marie, the Tsar's mother, heard of the girl and sent relatives to investigate. None could say absolutely that the woman was Anastasia. They reported that at best, the ailing girl had only a few years left to live. Yet others recognized the girl immediately. Grand Duke Andrei, the Tsar's cousin, identified her as Anastasia. Titania Botkin, a childhood playmate, positively recognized her. For them and others, there was no doubt that the woman was Anastasia. The identity of the woman who claimed to be Anastasia became the subject of a vicious feud among the surviving Romanovs. Political intrigue and the prospect of a huge inheritance played a major role in the dispute. For the next 20 years, her life was unpredictable and erratic. She spent much of her time in and out of hospitals. She was pursued and celebrated by American high society. She lived for years as a guest of European royalty. Yet still, she had no official identity.
In which way? Can you tell me that? Can you really prove for me who you are?
I can prove who I am.
You can believe it or you don't believe it. It doesn't matter. In no any way whatsoever. Those people who hear these mass, they get up in the bed or go to sleep when they're sleeping. They don't know what to hear or what to see, and they are not interested.
Recently, compelling new evidence has added support to the claim that Anna Anderson Manahan is the Grand Duchess Anastasia. In a house nearly concealed by untended bushes, the Manahans live a slow and rarely interrupted life. Her numerous cats are now Mrs. Manahan's main concern. Mr. Manahan is a retired history professor with a passionate interest in royal genealogy.
This is a picture she's coming, I think. Here is Anastasia, as she was in 1929. And these are the parakeets that were brought from Honolulu by Princess Xenia of Russia after she came on the Berengaria the year after the Prince of Wales had come on the same ship. And this is the calendar, the Russian imperial calendar, showing the four sisters, the Tsar, the Tsarina, and the Tsarevna.
Her court case alone had made legal history. Lasting 32 years, it was the longest-running legal battle of the century and drew much attention. She was represented by some of Germany's most eminent lawyers who virtually donated their services. Members of European aristocracy spent small fortunes trying to disprove her claim. In the end, the verdict was unsatisfactory to both sides. The Supreme Court finally ruled that her identity as Anastasia had been neither proved nor refuted. Ian Lilburn, a research historian, was present at much of the Anastasia trial. He is the acknowledged expert on the case.
Yes, I have studied the case now for 14 years, and although I began from a completely hostile attitude, I have, in the course of time, come round to believing absolutely in her identity as the Grand Duchess Anastasia. It's not so much the evidence. There is a vast amount of circumstantial evidence in her favor, but the little details and anecdotes which in themselves mean nothing in a court of law are vastly impressive to anyone who has experienced them in her presence, the spontaneity of her remarks and her whole bearing.
think that it's highly unlikely that Anna Anderson could be Anastasia. Because, of course, you can imagine that the question interested me very much indeed, and I went into it in great detail, and for many reasons, I think, which would be rather too long to enumerate here, I eventually came to the conclusion that she couldn't possibly be my cousin Anastasia.
I'm Prince Frederick of Saxe-Altenburg.
Prince Frederick of Saxe-Altenburg has been a consistent supporter of Anna Anderson Manahan.
My both parents were related with the Romanovs, and my own cousins have been assassinated 1918. I know Anna Anderson for 46 years and have been very often and very thoroughly with her together. And
it doesn't mean... Say that again. That I cough when I'm frightened? When you were a little girl, you coughed when you were frightened. Marion Kyle. Marion Kyle. You have come from so far away and I've waited so long. No, don't cry. There's no need to be frightened. No, don't speak.
Compelling evidence has come from the comparison of their ears, which, like fingerprints, are unique to each individual. A photograph of the historical Anastasia's ear was compared with the ear of Anna Anderson Manahan. Furtmeyer concluded that the two were identical. The Grand Duchess Anastasia was absolutely the woman known as Anna Anderson Manahan.
I would like to see Anastasia to live and have some reputable historians in the world say yes, they believe that this really is the last surviving daughter of the Tsar and the Tsarina. Would you like to see a happy resolution of this matter in your lifetime?
I spit on
And the fact remains with Anastasia, or Anna Anderson, or whoever the hell she is. We will never know. It is now too late. Even if she were to become and tell the full truth.
Today, for Mrs. John Manahan, the 50-year quest to establish her true identity is coming to an end. Weary and frustrated from a lifetime of claims, countercharges, and court cases, all she now asks is to be left alone.
And that's a quick review of an old episode. And from some recent DNA tests determined that the claims of the lady in Charlottesville, Virginia, who stated that she was Anastasia, they proved to be false. And that was the latest, that's the last I've heard of that. And I don't know if they've done any more recent DNA tests to disprove the previous ones. But anyhow, that'll do it, and hope you got everything in here for a quick enough review. One moment, please. Let me get a final screen on here.